Hey Dynamics 365ers, it's Benitez here, and in this vlog today I'm going to be going through part 1 of my grant application management series. So earlier this month I presented at the Dynamics 365 Saturday Australia here in Melbourne, and I showcased how you can use Dynamics portals and Dynamics 365 Universal Resource Scheduling for grant application management. So the agenda today is I'm going to discuss about why I decided to build a solution for grant application management, the technologies that were used, the scenario, and we'll jump into part 1 of the demo. So in terms of why grant application management, it came about after a Melbourne Dynamics 365 user group where I had a chat afterwards with one of the people that attended. So his name is Yar Iqbal. He's one of our good friends at the Dynamics 365 community. So he went along to all the Dynamics 365 Saturday Australia conferences here. And I told him how I wanted to do something on Dynamics portals because I love it. It's my jam. And Yar suggested that I do something around application management. So then that got me into looking into grant applications. So it's common here in Australia, and when I did my research, 3 out of the 5 grant application management style organizations were still using a paper form. So you would go to their website, you would download the form, and then you would send it as an email. And only 2 of the 5 seemed to have a portal where you could log in and I suppose submit the grant application from there. And I wanted to challenge myself in terms of, can I actually use universal resource scheduling for a grant application management business solution? And of course, the term universal means you can use it for anything, right? So that's what I decided to do. So what you're seeing on the screen right now over on the right hand side is an application form. So I actually went and grabbed this form off one of the Australia vic.gov websites, and I built some of it in Dynamics portals, which you'll see through today. So in terms of the technologies and methods that I've used, so as I mentioned earlier, I used Universal Resource Scheduling for Dynamics 365, and for the emailing in terms of notification to the external reviewer and the applicant, I used actions and a custom workflow activity from a fellow MVP, Aiden. So he has a solution called Workflow Elements, and within the solution there's a bunch of cool custom workflow activities that you can use. And so one of them I used in this business solution because I'm not a developer, I'm what you call a functional, and the whole challenge of this as well was being able to configure and customize, so not using any code. And then over on the right hand side we've got Dynamics portals. So it's the usual setup. I utilized web forms and entity forms, entity lists, and to do the security, things like the web roles, the entity permissions, and web page access controls. So the scenario is there's an organization called Sir Grants-a-Lot, and they provide funding for companies that want to get into the technology space. So the founder is Gordon Yates. So this is K9. K9 invented a smart collar where it will measure the temperature of your dog, and based on the temperature levels, it will send a notification to an app on your phone so that you know when your dog needs to go to the bathroom. So no more accidents in the house through K9's app. And then we have external reviewers who will review the grant application. So in terms of Gordon, he wants to make sure that his money is going towards good use. And part of that requires having external reviewers who are experts in that field to review the grant application before it gets approved. So in terms of the demo, I will go through the applicant experience and the scheduling of the external reviewer today. In terms of part 2, I'll go through the reviewer experience, the comments, and the confirmation of the application approval. So just to be clear, in terms of the applicant experience, I'm not going to go through in detail because I have previous vlogs that talk about utilizing web form and web form steps. And so the purpose of today's part 1 is to go through the scheduling of external reviewers using the universal resource scheduling. And in the demo, I'm not going to cover the internal reviewer process because I wanted to focus on the challenge of doing the external reviewer process. Okay, so fingers crossed, let's hope the demo works. All right, so let's jump into it. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to show you is the Dynamics portals that I've created. So here's Sir Grancelot, and we're going to log in as K9. So K9 is going to log into the portal, and she's going to submit an application. So as you can see, once she's logged in, she now sees applications. So that is configured through the use of entity permissions, web roles, and web page access control. And this is why she can now see applications in the menu, whereas previously when she wasn't logged in, she couldn't see it. And so what you're seeing right now is an entity list, and when you click on New Application, it's going to display the first web form step. And in the first web form step is where we provide some information. So as I mentioned earlier, all of the fields that you're going to see in here is based on an application that I grabbed from one of the public Business Victoria websites. So she's providing information about the industry and the business structure. The next thing you're going to see is what we call ABN registration. So here in Australia, it's mandatory for businesses to have what you call an Australian business number that's registered with the Australian Business Register. And I'm going to type this in. So the ABR, they do have a web API where you can do a JSON direct call from the portal, but like I said, the challenge that I wanted to do is just simply using customization and configuration. So I am manually typing this out, but we have, well, me and my company, we have done it for customers of ours where we have implemented a web API so that this is all automatic. Okay, so then the next web form step is allowing the applicant to upload some documentation in regards to their ABN registration. So this is for the purpose of making sure that they're not a fraud company, basically. So you're providing the supporting documentation as part of the application. And so outside of this, if you were emailing, you would fill out your form, you would upload all your supporting documentation and any other files for the application. But in terms of the portal, what you can do is have like a separate area that's simply dedicated to that particular type of documentation. And so if the applicant goes back, they'll be able to see what they've uploaded. They can click on it, and they can also open the file. So this is just using the out-of-the-box notes configuration with Dynamics portals. So this is just enabled in the web form step. So there's a document. Okay, so I'm going to move along. And then the final web form step is just to do with the classification. So in here, these are simply just fields, and this is all helper text. So I do have a previous vlog in regards to helper text. So check that out if you want to know more about helper text. And then I'm going to save and close. So that was me just covering briefly the applicant process, but what I really want to go to next is the universal resource scheduling. Okay, so from here, the idea is that when K9 is ready to submit her application, she can do so. And so when she clicks on submit application, it's calling an on-demand workflow that will set the status to submitted, the status reason. So when she clicks submit application, you'll now see that the status reason has been updated to submitted. So in terms of the application process, that gives you like an idea of what you can do with Dynamics portals. So what we're going to do now is head into Dynamics 365 and I'll show you how the scheduling, the universal resource scheduling works. Okay, so the first thing that you need to do when you use universal resource scheduling is you want to set up your what you call your resources, your resource characteristics as well. So what that looks like is you come into here. So this is resources. And so I've got a bunch of resources in here and it's linked to a contact. So one of the questions that was asked during the conference when I presented was, what types of resources can you have? And I was put on the spot, and instead of saying, I don't know, let me get back to you, I tried to answer it, but I failed. So just a tip there, when you are presenting and you don't know the answer, just own up to it. But sometimes when it just happens and you're put there in the spot, you tend to forget. But luckily, Neil Benson had my back, so he actually answered that person's question at the end of my presentation. So Neil, thank you if you're watching. So in case you don't know, here are the resource types that you can use. But yeah, so anyway, so you set up your bookable resources. So this will represent the external reviewers in Dynamics 365. And then in terms of the resource characteristics, you go to resource skills and these are your characteristics. So one that I have in here is called Animal Expert. So that's one that we're going to be using today. So you set that up, and then there's also resource roles. So the one that I've created is called External Reviewer. And the other important thing that you need to do in terms of your resources, so if I just open up Cesar Milan, is that you need to set the work hours. So the work hours is important. It's important because it is going to set, well, it's going to allow you to see their availability, which I'll show you shortly. So you can have resources that work, let's say, from 9 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. or you have resources that are available 24 hours, or you can set it up where, let's say, it's from 12 o'clock to 7 o'clock in the evening. So that's what you pretty much do. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly switch back to applications. So if I now refresh this, we'll see the one that we created, and you'll notice a couple of things. So first of all, I have a section in here called External Reviewer, and at the moment it's blank because we haven't assigned an external reviewer. But when we scroll down, you'll see that this is the information that K9 had created through the portal. But the other cool thing that you'll notice is there's now this button called Book, which will launch the schedule board. And this is where the universal resource scheduling kicks in. Application is a custom entity. It's not a out-of-the-box entity. And so what you need to do is enable the resource scheduling for your custom entity. Now, to do that, I followed a blog post, which I will link down below, and basically, oh yeah, and the docs.microsoft.com article as well. You head into your scheduling settings and you enable scheduling, and when this loads, you'll see the entities that have been enabled by default for resource scheduling. So there's project and work order. And so here's my one in here, and when you set it up, there's a bunch of metadata that you need to set. I want to call out that what you're seeing here is incorrect. What I should have done was created the relationship in the solution, but what I did in here, so back in the enable scheduling, was hit create new relationship, and when you do that, it creates a relationship in the default solution. So you live and learn. So next time when I do go through this, I will actually set up the relationship in the solution instead. So tip, do not do it from here. Do not click on create new relationship because it will create it in the default solution. Okay, so then the next thing that happens is before I click on book, what happens is I have a workflow that is creating a resource requirement, and this will help when we launch the schedule board. So while that's loading, I'll show you my workflow. So I have a workflow called check application status. So when the application is updated to submitted, which is this one, so this is the on-demand workflow that was called in Dynamics portals. The next workflow that's going to fire is a workflow that will set the end date, and if it is submitted, then it's going to go ahead and create the resource requirement. So that's based on the industry. So I'm saying it's pet services, and when it creates the resource requirement characteristic, I'm saying set it to animal expert. And so by doing that, when we launch the application schedule board, so now when I click book, it will bring up the schedule board. There we go. And we'll see that the schedule board will automatically provide a list of suggested bookable resources. Now, that's because of that resource requirement I had created in the workflow. So you'll see that it's set it to 40 hours. So this is based on the resource scheduling metadata that I had set in the settings. And you'll see that it's automatically put in animal expert. And I've also got the workflow setting the start date and the end date. And you'll notice that it's setting the start date to Monday instead of today, because in the default hour work template, I've said that the hours are from Monday to Friday. So the schedule board is smart enough to know not to set day one as today, Sunday, because that's the day today, if that makes sense. So it's making the first day as Monday. And you'll see that it's suggesting resources and who can do the full 8 hours. And if you look towards to the right, you'll see that you've got some resources that can't work on the Saturday or Sunday, which is why you're seeing 0 hours. And then you're seeing other resources who are available, such as Holden, because of the work hours template that's been set to that bookable resource. And then you've got someone like Cheryl, who only has availability from Monday to Friday, but she's available 24 hours. Superhuman. Okay. And what's also cool is it will show you the amount of hours that are not booked, and which is pretty handy. So then the next step that you want to do is pretty much highlight the one that you want to book, and you can click book and exit. So for those of you who know Cesar Millan, raise your hand. So he is the animal expert from, I believe, the Animal Planet, or is it National Geographic Channel? Anyway, so Cesar Millan is known as a dog whisperer, so of course I'm going to book him for K9. And then actually I'll click on book. So now when I click on book, we're going to see that it's now been allocated. So first of all, you get a message pop up here, and then you'll see that it's now booked. And if I expand this, we will now see that the booking resource requirement has now appeared, and we're now saying that it's committed. So now if I exit from here, what I want to show you is now when we go to the bookable resource bookings, we should now see those daily bookable resource bookings from Monday, May 28 to Friday, June the 1st. And you'll see that it's 8 hours. And based on Cesar Millan's work hours, it will also set the start time to Cesar's hours, as well as the end time. So that's pretty cool. So then the next bit is emailing Cesar Millan and getting him to log into the portal. So stay tuned, because that is what I will be talking through in part 2 of my grant application management series. So make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel or follow me on Twitter so that you don't miss out on part 2. And yeah, thanks for watching. I hope you've learned something so far, and I'll show you the rest in my next vlog. I'll see you next time.